This is Brandon Steele with Mainsail Financial Group. Welcome to Money Talks, where we host industry experts and local professionals to share some tips, some tricks, some guidance into the areas that they get to focus on day to day. Today we want to thank Marissa Gaston for joining us to share some expertise into not only her area of knowledge, but how to network, how to make the most of some events that you may attend. So Marissa, really excited to have you, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and before we jump into things, can you share a little bit about where we got our coffees and what we're doing out here?
Yeah, so we are on a lovely rooftop here in downtown Bellevue. We got our coffees, our iced drinks from Third Culture Coffee, which is a place where I have had many friend meetings, business meetings, mentor meetings. So I've been going there for a number of years. I remember it when it was not yet kind of this like hopping chic place to see and be seen, and I love how it's grown and really kind of become like a community anchor point, I feel like. So really good stuff.
Yeah, it's great spot for sure. And the view's not bad from up here either.
Not bad.
It is a hot day, by the way, so I guess it's nice to have a little breeze up top here. But
nice to have a breeze, dressed to be a little bit cooler, but it's like 85 degrees, I feel like, something like that. We got sun like just up above us.
Got it all.
Yeah, we're vibing.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Marissa, for joining us today. Marissa is actually on the Young Professionals Network. She is a 30 for 30, what do we call that? Awardee? Honoree.
Yeah, last September.
And also has co-authored quite a few pieces as well. And so we're really happy to have you here and share a little bit about, some of your networking skills and some things that we can maybe tap into.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, I direct the Young Professionals program at the Washington Policy Center, which is a nonpartisan 501c3 state-based think tank here in Washington. So we have offices in Seattle, in Spokane, as well as some kind of remote colleagues in Tri-Cities and Vancouver area. So in the course of kind of leading the Young Professionals program, I cover essentially the whole state with key hubs in Seattle, Spokane, Tri-Cities, and then I'm based here on the east side in the Bellevue area.
Perfect. And can you share a little bit about what you do and what the group does? Like, what your primary focus is?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Young Professionals is geared towards raising up the next generation of free market leaders in the state of Washington. I like to say that I live by the 3 E's in the course of my job every week. So educating, engaging, and empowering. So I'm always giving thought to how am I doing those 3 things for the next generation of up-and-coming leaders. And this is accomplished in a variety of ways, most critically via the events that we put on. So typically we're doing about 24, maybe more events statewide every year, roughly quarterly in each of those regions I sketched out, as well as a monthly book club. We also have a mentorship program. We have college clubs across the state. We do a podcast, and there's a lot of social media engagement, especially Instagram at WPC_Young Professionals. Check us out. So it's a really fun, wide-ranging, very just engaging job. I get to wear a lot of hats. I've just been blessed to work with so many fantastic people, both on the Young Professionals Advisory Board that I have and in the YP community, and my colleagues at WPC. So learned and grown a lot.
Awesome.
It's wonderful.
Cool. Well, yeah, definitely looking forward to tapping into your expertise.
Yeah.
And I want to come back to the leadership side of it maybe as we get closer to wrapping up, but I want to start maybe on the events part of it.
Sure.
So obviously you guys host a lot of events, and I guess maybe as a segue into our conversation, can you talk to the importance of networking for whether young folks or just anybody in general, and how that can help them in moving forward?
Yeah, I would really say the world runs on relationships, and so I like to think of networking as building relationships, not something that is kind of this, I feel like there's almost an icky, overly quantitative sense about networking. But no, I mean, I like to approach it as really reaching out and building new connections. And as far as any keys to networking, I mean, I think that the focus is first on yourself and adding value to yourself. If you are a high value person, right, then you don't need as much of the networking piece, so to speak. People will come to you because they know what, or become aware of what you have to offer, right? So you become this I don't know, point that will draw people in. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, I mean, they don't network as such, but they have a really strong skill set in their respective areas of expertise. So if they want the introduction, they get it. And obviously those are extreme examples, kind of very upper echelon, but it's very much something I think that we can replicate. So I would say make sure that you are building building your own skills and that you have a lot of value to bring and to offer, and that helps with the networking component. I feel like networking just starts to flow naturally from there.
Sure. That's really good, and I think probably to your point on why it gets a bad rep or feels icky, I think is what you said. It's probably because the folks that feel that way don't feel like they have something to offer, right? So if you're not Bill Gates or Elon Musk, like what are some examples or ways to figure out what you can provide as far as value when you go to these types of events?
Yeah, well, I would definitely say dial into what skill sets you want to develop and what your talents are and where you want to be going next in your career, and think about, in addition to kind of making an ask of someone, right? Trying to connect with, the HR person or the recruiter at the company of your dreams. Like, also think about like how you can present yourself and frame yourself, like the skills that you're going to be able to bring them, right? And just, I'm certainly not Bill Gates or Elon Musk, but I mean, nevertheless, I'm able to reflect on like, okay, these are areas where I'm really strong. This is how I could help, whatever individuals I'm working with, and this is how it might be mutually beneficial.
Sure. Right? Okay. And what, I guess with that, is there certain ways that you would suggest framing a conversation? Like, in other words, I think part of that is also that some people will go up, feel like they have to like get their point out or talk about what they do, as opposed to just more of a natural conversation.
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to let it be organic. Small talk also kind of gets a bad rap, but in reality, small talk is how we build a basic level of rapport and trust with each other. It's the signal in social settings that like, I'm not just this like calculating operator, right? It's like we can be human together. We can relate to each other. So I mean, in the end, it's so very much about emotions and giving. Having a positive emotional experience together, right? So don't be afraid of having that conversation about how much you both love to go skiing, or finding that connection point of like, oh, I like to have this sort of drink as well. So those are some thoughts.
Okay, no, I think that's really good. I think like to your point, the small talk part of it, like for whatever reason seems awkward for a lot of people. But that is exactly how you find something to turn into more of a deep conversation. So
yeah, I mean, just it's so trot out. But I mean, be casual, be yourself. I mean, obviously you have your goals, but I mean, the notion of a relationship is something that both people will invest in, and so you want to make that investment, right? Sure. You want to lay the groundwork, lay the foundations for that. So I would say like really shy away from this notion of networking or the kind of the component mechanical pieces of it, small talk, whatever. Shy away from conceiving of that as quantitative or again calculating, right? I'm using words with similar connotations, right? But stay away from that and instead think about just being genuine, building positive relationships with people, positive emotional experiences, and reciprocal value above all else, right? So if you make that investment in yourself on whatever level, maybe you get really good at coding, maybe you get really good at sales, right, and really good at graphic design, and you lead with that, then frankly, it's much easier for a potential employer or a potential collaborator to kind of place you out of the gate in terms of like, oh, like this person, I could collaborate with them in this way, right? Because I mean, everybody's got a million pieces flying around all the time, a million plates that are spinning. So if you're strong in one particular way that you can advertise, that you can lead with, I think that will give you an edge.
That's a really good point, and I imagine that also helps for remembering you too.
Certainly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I hope this isn't putting you on the spot too much, but with where this conversation went, I'd love to hear like if you can give me the top 2 or 3 like latch on to things, like immediate actionable items that people can start to use when they do attend networking events. Are there some things that you really think of top of mind?
What do you think about that? I would say if you're going to an event such as our upcoming Young Professional Seattle Summer Social on Thursday, August 4th, and you are, you're heading there with the goal of networking, as such, so building relationships, I would give some thought as to kind of what the next career moves are that you're posturing for, right? So seeds or foundations that you want to lay. So kind of have your goal in mind, and then I would dedicate a little time to shoring up kind of your personal pitch, if you will, that you organically that you weave into your conversations, right? So things about yourself to emphasize when the time comes. So not forcing anything, but when it comes. So I have this specialty in graphic design, or I'm really good at sales, and I've had this experience with cars or whatever. So just give some thought to that. I would say preparation is key, but also not undue preparation to the point that it becomes kind of stiff.
Sure.
So always tracking that middle line of like, you want to have a sense, but you don't want to have it down to every single word prepared to where you're not like you're not natural.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So
that's good.
Always Aristotle's means, right? Golden mean, virtue between two vices.
Okay. Good. I'll add a third one if that's all right,
Yeah,
too,
please.
just because it works for me. So I would consider myself probably more of an introvert than an extrovert.
Yep.
Like I'll still force myself to talk. But for me, what works a lot is to have a goal of like, okay, I'm gonna meet and make contact with 5 people.
Yes, yeah,
right?
That's a wonderful one.
Yeah, and by the way, when I do this, it's not like, okay, hello and goodbye. Like this is actually a real conversation.
Substantive conversations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love that one too. That's an excellent one.
So obviously, this is maybe another chance for a good little plug here. But where can people find these types of events?
That's a very organic segue into a plug, and I'm definitely going to take it. So what I do for a living is in large part putting on events like these. So as I said before, typically they're quarterly, Seattle area, Spokane area, Tri-Cities area. For our organization, you can go online to Washington Policy, it's just washingtonpolicy.org/young professionals, and look at our upcoming events. So getting plugged in with these kind of like civic engagement-minded groups. Facebook certainly has a wealth of events. I always put our events on Facebook, so browsing around there. I believe that there's a Seattle Young Professionals group as well, possibly through the Seattle Chamber, I want to say. So these are some thoughts off the top of my head. I mean, frankly, the Young Professionals program that Washington Policy Center offers is pretty unique and is unparalleled in some ways. We have a really strong community. Monthly book club is a very intimate gathering, kind of low-key way to start and get your toes wet in the community. So definitely check out Washington Policy Center's program. We definitely have a lot of opportunities to this effect.
Awesome. And so just to make sure I heard it, basically, so your website, the Washington Policy Center, Facebook, and the Chamber are 3 good places to start?
I think the Chamber. I may be misplacing where this other Young Professionals group is attached to, but yeah. And if all else fails, I mean, you can reach out to your city's local chamber and say, I'm looking for ways to connect with other young professionals. Do you have or do you know of any groups to this effect?
Okay.
And then as far as kind of staying abreast of what's happening with the young professionals, right, on my program's front, you can check the website, washingtonpolicy.org/young professionals. You can go on Facebook. We're on Facebook, of course. We have a Facebook page. And then Instagram is another place where, for our group, everything goes online. So at WPC_young professionals.
Awesome. And I know, obviously, your role is in the young professional side of it, but I think this applies to everybody. So whether they're 20 or 60, I mean, building your network and moving up, so to speak, over time, like that's all important. So I think all those places would still apply for anybody. So.
World runs on relationships, yeah, and my organization, the Washington Policy Center, has a number of these events. I run the Young Professionals department, but we have, again, a wide-ranging variety of events that are certainly meant for all ages, and even some of the YP events that I do, such as our upcoming one in Tri-Cities, is geared towards families and all ages. So,
Okay,
yeah,
perfect. Yep, that's great. So similar, like there's kind of a similar question. So if I'm asking the same thing twice, just feel free to let me know.
Sure.
But we talked a lot about networking, but can you also maybe talk a little bit about like being a part of your community and the importance of that, not just for like your next job, but just generally speaking, and what opportunities that can bring?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, where do I even want to start with this? I think that in the age that we're currently living in the West, we're living so comfortably. So many of us are so privileged in so many ways. But one of the kind of very insidious beliefs that I've noticed that a lot of us have just kind of adopted via osmosis without even giving it much thought, myself included up until fairly recently, is this notion of kind of a hyper-individualistic notion of an atomized person. And I think that that's fundamentally false. I think we are not meant to be alone. I think that we are, in fact, well, and science tells us this, we are fundamentally social creatures, and we do best when we are in community and we are working in tandem with other people. So I think that having a strong community, both personal and professional, and sometimes the edges of those blend, certainly, but having that is so critical. I mean, it boosts our sense of own value in ourselves and connects us to others. So I would put a premium on community engagement. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. And I think too, like, just from my experience, you never know too where these things will go. So
exactly. Yeah.
You might meet somebody 20 years ago that you never thought would lead to anything, and then all of a sudden you find out that, I don't know, they can get your kid on the baseball team. I don't know what it is,
who
right?
knows?
But like, whatever.
Yeah, and you're not. The beauty of it is, hopefully you're not even coming into it with that angle, right? You're coming into it with just a sense of like, I want to be a part of this. I want to give of myself, and perhaps create some relationships, service.
Yep.
Wonderful. I spent as an elementary, middle, high school, I spent about 10 years volunteering at an assisted living facility, just because I wanted to, and that was lovely. I learned so much from those people, and learned a lot of skills. So community engagement is just, I think it's worth emphasizing the merits of community, especially as more of us live in this urbanized setting that is inclined towards atomization. We don't know our neighbors. If someone new moves into your apartment building, can you reach out to them? Can you leave a plate of non-allergenic foods at their door? Can you send a piece of mail saying welcome? Can you maybe once a month or once every other month, can you take the lead on putting together some kind of community activity that draws together the people on your block or on your floor just to socialize? And I think that something that older generations knew and were more familiar with that we have again lost is how critical these are. This is the lifeblood. And I've heard so many people who are older than me, wiser than me, say that the quality of your relationships, above all else, determines the quality of your life. This is not just personal, not just professional, but this is holistically.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
And of course, I don't want to sound like I'm tending too much to one extreme of like, don't spread yourself thin. Obviously, you be prudent in your energy allocation, but at the same time, don't succumb to this hyper individualistic sense of, I can do it all myself. I can be, kind of self-sufficient in the sense of like social community. Don't shy away from it.
Yeah, no, that's good. And just since you went there with the assisted living facility, when you were there, what did those folks have to say about relationships on the far other end of the spectrum?
Those are some of the older and wiser folks who emphasized to me their merit and their importance. And so many of them at that age are suffering from loneliness, right?
Yeah.
Which is a tragedy unto itself. That's its own conversation. And I learned so much from them, and really
Perfect.
Wonderful times.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of came full circle back to the relationship is why I wanted to start there. But maybe the third leg to the stool of what you do is leadership as well, leadership development.
Yep.
Can you talk about, like, I guess what would you say are the top one or two like traits of a leader?
Yeah.
So people can kind of think about that and figure out what they may want to work on.
Skills, I would say too. So I have a handful that come to mind. One is the vision. So, one of the key things that a leader is doing is he has a vision and makes it plain, right? So there's a Bible verse that I like, write the vision and make it plain. And in a sense, that is very much what a leader is doing. Has a vision and is then conveying that vision to the people who are following he or she, him or her, and then of course, obviously writ large, especially in the business community, as you're seeking clients and customers. So being able to convey a vision, articulate a vision. And it's interesting, I think in an organizational structure, if you kind of envision a CEO at the top, that CEO just has to be saturated with the vision, I feel, because the farther down the organizational tree you go, the more the direct impact of that CEO is diluted, and therefore the more that vision messaging is apt to be diluted. So you got to have a really strong signal coming from that CEO in this case. So articulating vision, that's one. And I'll add here as kind of a tangent, a caveat. A vision does not necessarily mean you're trying to force a certain thing down your customers' throats in terms of selling. The customer is the final arbiter of value in all times and all places. So developing your product or your sales strategy, fine-tuning it, that's its own conversation. That's more in the entrepreneurial space, like how do you get something up and running, right? How do you develop your product? How do you make sure it sells? But broadly speaking, vision is critical. And then certainly personal integrity, right? You're modeling the values that you want to be exemplified in this culture, the culture of your company, culture of community activity, whatever it is. And then another just absolutely critical one is communication. Good communication skills. Good, clean, clear communication skills. There's a wonderful quote from Jordan Peterson that I love. He says that conflict suppressed is conflict multiplied. So don't let things fester. Just out it, address it in an even-handed way. Don't jump to judgment. Right? So all of this is under the umbrella of good, strong communication, and also being able, and this links back to vision, being able to articulate your vision in such a way that you or the people working with you, your team, can figure out specific things to execute on, and then those become job descriptions, and then those become more people that are working with you, a community, right? The importance of community and relationships that are then pulling towards that vision. So that's kind of a very all-encompassing.
I was going to say that is an amazing answer. So I think that was really good, and I think that with that we'll probably wrap up, because that really drove, I think, the whole thing home. So as we wrap up, though, is there anything else that you do want to touch on, or did we cover a good chunk of things here?
I think we covered a lot of things, pretty wide-ranging.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, and if anybody does want to get in touch with you or figure out where to find some of these events or anything, is there a good way for them to connect? Yeah, so again, the Instagram. So I know I've dropped that handle a couple of times, WPC_Young Professionals. You can email me at mgaston@washingtonpolicy.org. And I also have a work cell, so you can text or call me at 509-954-2449. So lots of options. Awesome. Thanks again so much for joining us. It's really good. Yeah. And of course, if you guys have any questions for us, you can email us directly, info@mainsailfg.com. Thanks, Marissa. That's great. Thank you.